Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the ReluTech podcast. I am today excited to welcome a new nerd to our nerd series where we welcome nerds from our Nerd Rabbit platform to talk about some of the topics they have expertise in. So we have Gudimetla here from Datalake Solutions, also known as Rabbit117 on the Nerd Rabbit platform, and his business partner, Ananda Jami. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you,
Hey, thank
Chris.
you, Chris.
Well, it's good to have you guys on. If we want to start with just some introductions, we can start with you, Ram, and then you can pass it to Anand. Introduce yourself, Datalake Solutions. I'd love our viewers to know a little more about your background just to start things off.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you very much for having us, first of all. My name is Gudimetla. I am an ex-IIT Kanpur alumni. Basically, we started Datalake Solutions around 2018, primarily focusing on the data aspect of it. As the days pass on, we focused more and more onto the cloud. Now we are focusing more onto the AI. As you can see, all these things are really related. We have offices both in India and here. We have 20 plus associates banging the keyboard, especially on making all the AI products for us. Good, Anand.
Thank you, Chris, again. This is Ananda Jami. I'm co-founder and CEO of Datalake Solutions. I lead strategy, delivery, and client growth, helping organizations transform through AI and cloud technologies. I focus on making sure every project is not just delivered, but delivered with impact. We build scalable cloud-native applications. That's a brief background about us. As Ram said, we also have office in US and India as well.
Well, it's great to have both of you on and your expertise on our show. The topic for today is conversational AI. So obviously, over the past few years, this has become a very poignant piece of conversation in the tech industry. There's a lot of people doing it different ways right now. Something that a lot of people have started to notice, which you guys kind of, like you said, a lot of these aspects of what you work in are related, whether it be working with complex data solutions or working in the cloud, so you have the processing necessary to do something like AI. All of this has an interconnected nature to it. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. We're going to talk about a few different use cases of some conversational AI projects that you guys have been working on with actual customers in the real world, so people out there can start to think more about what are the options for them. So first use case we have is an application called Co-Counselor. I will allow Ram to expand a little more on what Co-Counselor is.
Yeah, certainly, Chris. So Co-Counselor is a product basically aimed for mainly the addiction patients. As you know, addiction has been a biggest problem both in the United States and across the world. So we paired with a doctor here in Columbus, Ohio, and we received the requirement from him. One of the biggest pain point he has is the counselors. There are so many patients, but they don't have enough patients to handle the problem. Handle the intakes, especially, I should say. So what we have done is we implemented a conversational AI near real time. The kind of conversation like what we three are having now, it exactly mimics a similar conversation. It picks up on what you have said earlier, and also it'll try to respond within a few milliseconds. It not even takes seconds actually to respond, so that they can take it up and so that it completes the intake process. And I'll let Anand explain a little bit more in detail about the system design and how it came together.
Sure, Ram, thank you. So as Ram said, this is an AI-powered assistant built on a fully serverless HIPAA-compliant AWS architecture. We used services like AWS Lambda, API Gateway, DynamoDB, and S3, combined with the OpenAI language models to create conversational interface that supports intake process. As a result, the centers saw faster response times and better customer service and better scalability as well, while keeping the costs in check. Co-Counsel really changed how care begins for these clients. It was really taken by positively by our clients.
And I'd imagine, with that particular use case, when we first talked about it, something I appreciated with, the nature of addiction counseling and people who might be reaching out for that, time is of the essence, to say the least. And right. Some of the early questions are going to be name, address, contact information, all of these things that are definitely more standard intake, not something that you necessarily want a counselor who's educated in behavioral or cognitive therapy or things like this that are there to help addiction patients to be taking their time on. So what this helps do is kind of share the load a little bit, make it so there's an intake process that is prompt, which I think is the first and foremost element of it, but also accomplishes what needs to be done for some of these aspects that come before the actual addiction counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
just add to that one, Chris. So as per the intake process, in addition to the client information, they ask about 100 and 120 questions where the clients have to respond. Based upon the client's response, they come up with the treatment plan. So we automated complete process, even generating the interpretive summary and providing recommendations on the evaluation as well.
Yeah, because there will still be some early intake questions that are more generalized, that are there to inform the future counselor. Obviously, that's going to get more in depth as they get into the counseling process. But kind of getting into that, how does AI help alongside people so that they can utilize their expertise without getting necessarily into the more tedious elements of it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is also, Chris, as conversational is the theme of our company. So it's not going to simply ask yes and no kind of a thing. Do you take alcohol? Do you take heroin? It's not like that. It will kind of engage you. If you say that I take alcohol, oh, sorry to hear, and how many drinks you do, like where do you get the money? I mean, it kind of gets you into a conversation so that as a client, as a patient, otherwise, you get engaged and you will be open up yourself and you'll be speaking more freely. And also, this tool is not judgmental. It's not like a human, right? Obviously, it won't make up something. Okay, Chris is going to be like this. I'm going to put a tick marks for all the remaining five. It's not going to do it. It's obviously going to go through the set of questions, more conversational way, extract all the information so that it's not a judgmental system as well. So that's what we are quite proud and we are happy. We are helping the problem actually. That's what
Right.
we both are quite proud of.
Well, yeah, I mean that's important. It's kind of when we think about AI, there's kind of that inhuman element to it. It's a robot, right? But there is sometimes someone might feel more comfortable talking to a robot than someone who might feel a bit judgmental on the topic, particularly in a use case like this. So
Correct.
again, this whole AI conversation, there's a lot of areas where AI fits really well into things we've been doing, but how can we do them better? So we can address the real problem, because as we all know, the addiction problem is obviously sometimes larger than the solution seems to be able to keep up with. So things like this should hopefully be able to help with that. Now, getting past that, let's go into our next use case. So the next one has to do with a motel chain. And I believe what it had to do with is they had a lot of document extraction that needed to happen, but it also needed some AI processing that went alongside that. So please introduce that use case.
Yeah, certainly, Chris. I'm going to take it up and pass on to Ananda on this one too. So, Chris, this is a different use case, especially what happens just for the technology folks. Whenever you're using OpenAI, you are basically sending the data across the cloud, and basically it is reaching the OpenAI platform, and that's where the data get processed. This particular client does not want their data to be transferred to OpenAI. They have their fears. Obviously, the AI is still coming up. So hence they asked us to, can you do this on-prem or at least on the AWS, because they already have a lot of systems on AWS and they're comfortable with AWS. So the solution what we came up with is Bedrock, which is already available. And also we wanted to figure out, because the difference between co-counselor and this one here in the bank statements project, it has to be exact precision. For example, you received some money from a client like a Visa settled, like $2,579.15. That exact amount I need to report. I can't say 15 cents less or 15 cents more, right? Because this is accounting. So hence what we have done is we went ahead and tried various models. We tried even DeepSeek, because which is also the weights are available for you on Bedrock, and also Llamas, Mistral, and also the Anthropic models. And finally, we went with the Llama, so which is basically like producing a proper results for us. And also the good thing about this project is we established how somebody wants their system to run locally, how we can do it. That is a byproduct of this particular project. And I let Anand add more.
I think I covered it pretty well, Ram. So as Ram said, we tested different models, different llamas, DeepSeek, and Anthropic here, and we leveraged AWS Bedrock service. So at the end, we got very accurate extraction. It's, I would say, 99.999%. So that is pretty accurate.
Yeah, and that kind of brings up an important part of AI because I know in the community there's obviously a lot of fear. AI, it's going to reduce tech jobs. It's that I always, my dad was in tech during the dot-com boom and then the bust, right? And when you see both sides of it, it's not that the internet stopped being a thing after that, right? No, it was people coming to grips with some of the realities of this new technology, the scaling time that was necessary for some elements of it. That we got there eventually. But in this sense, it's really getting into the fact that you have to think about what is the level of errors that you might run into and what's the technical solution to that. Now, maybe it's not that you're going and banging out a bunch of lines of code to fix that. It's more about working with the right models and having some expertise.
Right.
It could be that you're worried about data sovereignty. And then you have to think, what are the tools available that maintain the data sovereignty that someone wants versus, the level of confidence, low errors, things like that you actually need for delivery in the end. So I do think it's important to note this whole AI craze is leading to these new skills that are kind of at the very beginning right now.
Exactly.
3 years ago, there was no llama in the tech world, right?
Right.
Only
But how
ML models, that's it. Traditional ML models is what people
there was
knew.
there was no Bedrock, there was no llama, there was some traditional ML models that were going on for the sake of recommendation engines and things we've been
Exactly.
familiar with. But then obviously ChatGPT showed up and it let everyone know, rung the bell that there's some more
Exactly.
possibilities out there.
Right.
So kind of, I guess, getting back into a little more of some of the conversational elements, because that one's obviously a lot of document extraction. The last use case we have here is more in the hospitality sector, but it's not what viewers might think. So they might think this is a bot to deal with customers in hospitality, right? No, not quite. So I'll let Ram introduce this kind of use case and really where this conversational chatbot came into play in the hospitality sector.
Absolutely. Most of you have a lot of cool experiences and harsh experiences with the front desk employees, right? Especially in the hospitality industry. So one of our client, he is a coach to these the front desk employees. So the goal for him is basically, he wanted to make some random and anonymous calls, see the feedback, how they are dealing with the customer. Are you greeting well? Are you picking up the phone within three rings and things like that? Are you giving options? Are you also talking about within the city, what kind of things are available? Obviously, there are two problems. One is having a human talk. Again, always there is a judgmental aspect when the human comes into the picture. So that is one aspect of it. Second is certainly the availability of the human strength, the human resources in United States has been always a problem, and they don't want out of the country people to talk because the customs and things like that they don't know exactly. Even though you coach,
They want to think that you've been to the store you're recommending, right? I'm calling to a
exactly.
hotel and the restaurant you're telling me is good, right? Like I want to
Yes.
believe that. So there are
Right.
elements where that human touch is, I'm not going to say necessary, but beneficial.
Exactly.
Right.
So what our client wanted is, like he want us to implement a solution, especially using the phone bot. In this case, the phone automatically, it will ring you as if like you're getting a call from a regular customer. So it's going to talk to you, pretending that, you are a front desk employee and it's basically trying to make a reservation. From there, we are going to capture some 7, 8 different attributes, which Anand will explain in detail on this.
Thank you, Ram. So, as Ram said, this is also an AI-powered call bot that makes realistic inbound calls to hotel friends. It's like a lifelike voice synthesis and real-time conversation. Each call is recorded and transcribed using Amazon tools, and then we also analyze the tone and do the tone analysis as well. And then we also do various skill set analyzing, and then making sure that the front desk people are answering the call and they're qualifying the caller and presenting the room options and handling various objections if the customer has anything like that. It is fully integrated with multiple communication platforms and scaled to handle hundreds of mystery shops per month. So as a result, what happened was a consistent data-driven way to coach hospitality staff at scale, and it has measurable impact as well, especially on the customer service area.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, it's a really interesting approach, right? Because you're not modeling any sort of customer service workflow
Uh-huh.
from the bot. You're
Hmm.
modeling a customer from the bot.
Right. Right.
And it's definitely different, but the benefit it provides is that the people who you do hire to provide customer service, they're obviously learning to meet standards like call times, things like that, but also learning to have certain conversations and one, a judgment-free atmosphere, like you guys mentioned. Someone who's new maybe has lacked confidence; they need to build that up. But the
Exactly.
other side is kind of the ability to not have a consequence of a big mistake, right? If you
Right.
answer in a severely wrong way, being able to address it without consequences, so you can then, when you're actually doing the job, not have any negative repercussions.
Right.
So it's
That's
a
right.
very interesting approach. And when we talked about that the other day, I was like, that's not really what I was thinking of when I thought of hospitality chatbots when you first mentioned it.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Well, and to close out the conversation, one thing I think is interesting is we've gone through a lot of different tools here, right? And I think that's what's really interesting because we touched on it a bit, but a lot of these didn't even exist a few years ago. It's
Right.
why expertise is important, but also why AWS I think is a particularly interesting ecosystem right now,
Hmm.
just because there's a huge processing element to AI.
Right.
There's also the need to have access to a lot of the popular models that exist and things like that. Um,
Exactly.
and then past that, if this AI is integrated into some kind of application, having it natively tie to the tooling that builds that application. So
Mhm.
we've talked a little bit about Bedrock. We've talked a little bit about Poly as the voice to the
Mm-hmm.
bot that was training hospitality people. DynamoDB. I mean, I think it's important for our viewers to know, for you guys, how important do you think is the background of understanding data in cloud for building AI versus necessarily only being an expert in all the new AI tools?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Chris. Just knowing the AI tools will probably get you like 30 to 40%, but understanding the underlying data, where it makes a huge difference. Whatever the three applications we have taken, by the way, me and Anand have spent enormous time on banking industry, retail, and hospitality industries. So we know whenever a client comes our way and present a problem our way, we go back to our, 2000s and 2010s experience and how we can make this application more robust and more horizontal and vertically scalable application on AWS. We do work on other clouds, but we do primarily focus on AWS because our team is also certified on AWS.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like a tech stack is another big thing we are using. Also, while doing all these projects, we build a tool set. The agentic frameworks or accelerators is what we call. That means like if somebody is coming and trying to do a project with us, we don't start from zero. We are already there at 40% because we have all these tools with us and we don't have to think two times before, how do you set up a DynamoDB? What is a primary index and secondary index and stuff like that, right? So we already have how to deal with S3, how to take certain backups, EC2s, and EKS, all those things. I mean, obviously, we don't want to discuss too detailed about the other tool set what we
No, we
have.
don't need to explain, how you work in the kitchen
Exactly,
or
but
anything, but it's important to know at least some of the details, I think, of the ingredients that are being used because
absolutely, we use all those, and we have the capability. That means if somebody comes our way, we right away start from 40%, so that reaching 100 would be 40% faster. Anand, go ahead and add, please.
I mean, you covered it very well, Ram. So we also heavily use Snowflake for the data analytics purpose as well. So we have strong expertise in Snowflake and data warehouse technologies as well. And then we were talking about, right, so there are few challenges or hurdles when we implemented these tools. For example, co-counselor, the biggest challenge was balancing client privacy with usability. So we wanted a system that felt conversational and accessible, but also had to strictly comply with HIPAA as well. So to solve that one, we implemented encrypted data flows and used fine-tuned language models designed to avoid storing or exposing sensitive information. That was pretty good. And the callback perspective as well, the main issue, as you know, there should not be any latency and the voice quality should be pretty good. So we implemented Amazon Poly, as you mentioned, Chris. So it is more of a natural sounding. We also provide various kind of accents and the various tones. So it went very, very well, and our customers are liking it as well.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is I think it's really important to consider, when anytime there's a new tech phenomenon happening, there's a lot of excitement, but sometimes it detaches itself from reality just a bit, that it is the next step in something that's been building for a very long time, which
Right.
is this massive big data type of operating that we can do nowadays, how the cloud allows you to do that without scaling up some big data center yourself and racking servers because everyone hates that.
Right.
That's more of a building process, like literal construction process, than it is, building a software solution for customer focus. So
Right.
it's a really interesting time for companies, but I think it's important to get back to the basics that, if you need something that has 99% certainty without errors, then you have to understand the data implications of doing that.
Absolutely.
If you're going to train your hospitality representatives on how to have conversations, you need to update your chatbot based on how customers are talking about the local area and things like that.
Right.
So to scrape data and be able to utilize that. And then again, HIPAA compliance and the tooling
Right.
needed to comply with that from a data exposure standpoint. So the basics never go away. And I think it's really important to close on that because we've been talking about, I think that's a really forward topic in the tech industry, but it's important to note that it's still built on the fundamentals. So
Yes, Chris, can't agree more.
love this
Yeah.
topic. As it goes, I'm sure we'll have other conversations in the future on this podcast. But again, thank you to Ram Gudimetla, also known as Rabbit117, and his business partner, Ananda Jami. You guys were excellent guests, and I look forward to having you guys on again.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Chris. Truly appreciate it having us on this podcast.
It was a blast. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.